Total football. Rinus Michels looked at football in the early 1970s and decided the entire sport was doing it wrong. His Ajax side didn't just play with positional freedom, they weaponized it into something the world had genuinely never seen before. Every outfield player could play every position, defenders launched attacks like strikers, and forwards pressed like they were born in the defensive third. Between 1971 and 1973, Ajax won 3 consecutive European Cups using this blueprint, turning Amsterdam into the tactical capital of world football. The system was so revolutionary that opponents literally didn't know who to mark or where to defend. Johan Cruyff, the genius orchestrating this beautiful chaos on the pitch, became the system's greatest evangelist. When he moved to Barcelona as a player and later as manager, he didn't just bring total football with him, he turned it into a religion. Positional rotation became doctrine, relentless pressing became scripture, and La Masia started producing disciples who could execute the philosophy in their sleep. The 1974 World Cup final showcased total football at its peak, with the Netherlands mesmerizing everyone before losing 2-1 to West Germany in what remains one of football's cruelest ironies. The philosophy demands elite technical players with the intelligence to read space and the stamina to press for 90 minutes without dying. You can't fake total football with average players. The system collapses the moment someone doesn't understand their role or gasses out after 60 minutes. Pep Guardiola's Barcelona and Manchester City are just Michels' blueprint updated with sports science, data analytics, and better athletes who can execute the madness at even higher intensity. Total football didn't win the 1974 World Cup, but it won the ideological war that defined the next 50 years of elite football. Catenaccio. Helenio Herrera's Inter Milan in the 1960s didn't care if you enjoyed watching them, they cared about winning, and they did it by making football miserable for everyone else. Catenaccio, Italian for door bolt, was built on one brutal philosophy: defend first, score once, then lock the game down like a bank vault. Herrera deployed a sweeper behind his defensive line to clean up any danger, added man markers who stuck to opposing forwards like shadows, and created a system where conceding goals felt like a personal failure. Inter won back-to-back European Cups in 1964 and 1965, plus 3 Serie A titles, proving that entertainment is optional when you're lifting trophies. The system was ruthlessly effective because it turned defense into an art form. The sweeper, or libero, read the game from behind the defensive line, covering any space the man markers couldn't reach. Opposing attackers found themselves suffocated by defenders who followed them everywhere, into the bathroom if necessary, making creative football nearly impossible. Italy fell in love with the philosophy and exported it globally, building 4 World Cup victories on variations of Herrera's defensive blueprint. The 1982 World Cup win, the 2006 triumph, even elements of their Euro 2020 success, all carried Catenaccio's DNA. Critics absolutely hated it, calling it boring, defensive, anti-football, everything negative you could imagine. Herrera didn't care, and neither did the Italian managers who followed his lead. You can complain about the style all you want, but when the final whistle blows and you're hoisting the World Cup, nobody asks how pretty the football was. Catenaccio proved that sometimes the most beautiful thing in football isn't a goal, it's a clean sheet and 3 points. La Masia philosophy. Johan Cruyff revolutionized Barcelona's youth academy in 1979 with a philosophy that prioritized technique over physicality and intelligence over raw athleticism. La Masia became a factory for producing players who thought faster than they ran, trained with the ball constantly, and understood positional play before they hit puberty. The results speak louder than any coaching manual ever could. Xavi, Andres Iniesta, Carles Puyol, Lionel Messi, Sergio Busquets, an entire generation of world-class players who came through the same youth system and dominated football for a decade. Barcelona's 2009 Champions League final starting 11 featured 7 La Masia graduates, proving the philosophy worked at the absolute highest level. Training sessions focused obsessively on ball mastery and small-sided games that replicated match situations under pressure. Kids practiced with tennis balls because Cruyff believed if they could control something that small and unpredictable, a regulation football would feel easy. Positional understanding got drilled into players from age 8, teaching them to occupy spaces, create passing triangles, and solve tactical problems through intelligent movement rather than physical dominance. The famous saying summed it up perfectly: if they can do it with a tennis ball, they own football. La Masia didn't produce athletes who happened to play football, it produced footballers who happened to be athletic. The philosophy drew heavy inspiration from Ajax's TIPS model: technique, intelligence, personality, speed. Ajax believed the first two could be taught through long-term development, while personality and speed were natural gifts players either had or didn't. Cruyff imported this framework to Barcelona and created a production line that churned out technically perfect, tactically intelligent players who understood the game at a level most professionals never reach. La Masia's golden generation has ended, but the philosophy remains Barcelona's identity, proving that when you build a system around developing smart players instead of fast ones, you create legends. Juego de posición. Juego de posición existed long before Pep Guardiola made it famous. It's a Spanish tactical philosophy built on positional play, space occupation, and creating numerical superiority in every zone of the pitch. Johan Cruyff imported the concept to Barcelona in the 1990s, embedding it into La Masia's youth academy as the foundation for everything the club would become. The idea was elegant in theory, but brutally difficult in practice. Players occupy specific zones to create overloads, ensuring you always have more passing options than the opponent has defenders. Structured possession dominates through intelligent positioning rather than just mindlessly keeping the ball. Guardiola took his education from Cruyff's Barcelona and perfected Juego de Posición at Manchester City, winning 4 consecutive Premier League titles between 2018 and 2021 through positional superiority that made opponents look amateur. His innovations, inverted fullbacks tucking into midfield, false nines dropping deep to drag centre-backs out of position, box midfield structures creating passing triangles everywhere, all stemmed from the core principle of occupying the right spaces at the right time. John Stones, a centre-back, would step into midfield during build-up play, creating numerical advantages that allowed City to progress the ball through press-resistant structures. It looked simple on paper, but required players with elite spatial awareness and decision-making. This is the most sophisticated tactical philosophy in modern football, which also makes it the hardest to execute properly and consistently. You can't just tell players to stand in zones and expect it to work. They need to understand when to hold position, when to rotate, when to create passing lanes, and how to exploit the spaces the system generates. Most teams try to copy Guardiola's City and fail spectacularly because their players lack the technical quality or tactical intelligence to make split-second decisions under pressure. Juego de Posición separates elite teams from everyone else, proving that football's most beautiful complexity happens in the spaces between players, not just in individual brilliance. Tiki-taka. Pep Guardiola's Barcelona between 2008 and 2012 didn't just dominate football, they suffocated it with a possession system so overwhelming that opponents became glorified spectators in their own matches. Tiki-taka turned the ball into a weapon of psychological warfare, with Xavi and Andres Iniesta orchestrating over 1,000 passes per game while the opposition chased shadows for 90 minutes. In 2009, Barcelona won 6 trophies in one calendar year, the sextuple, proving that when you never let go of the ball, the other team can't score. Opponents ran themselves into exhaustion trying to win possession, only to lose it again within seconds. Spain scaled the philosophy to international level with devastating results, winning Euro 2008, the 2010 World Cup, and Euro 2012, 3 consecutive major tournaments, an achievement so unprecedented it felt like they'd hacked international football. The 2012 Euro final showcased Tiki-taka's ultimate evolution when Vicente del Bosque deployed Cesc Fabregas as a false 9 with no traditional striker at all. Italy, confused and helpless, got destroyed 4-0 as Spain passed circles around them like they weren't even there. Sergio Busquets, Xavi and Iniesta controlled the tempo so completely that Italy's players probably went home questioning their life choices. Then everyone tried to copy it, and football nearly collapsed under the weight of mediocrity. Teams without Barcelona's technical genius or Spain's tactical discipline attempted tiki-taka and produced the most sterile, boring possession football imaginable. Endless sideways passes, backwards passes, safe passes that looked like the system but missed the entire point. Possession became an end in itself rather than a tool for domination, and matches turned into snooze fests where nothing happened for 90 minutes. Spain's golden generation retired, the blueprint suddenly felt outdated, and football collectively realized that revolutionary tactics only work when you have revolutionary players executing them. Counterattacking. Jose Mourinho built an empire on defensive solidity and explosive transitions that punished teams who dared commit numbers forward. His Porto, Inter Milan, and Real Madrid sides all shared the same ruthless DNA: sit deep, absorb pressure with organized defending, win the ball, and transition at lightning speed before the opposition could recover. The philosophy reached its ultimate validation in 2010 when Mourinho's Inter destroyed Pep Guardiola's Barcelona, the peak Tiki-taka side, in the Champions League semi-finals using pure pragmatic counter-attacking. Barcelona dominated possession, controlled the tempo, and still lost because Inter defended with 11 men behind the ball, then unleashed Diego Milito and Samuel Eto'o on devastating breaks that exposed Barcelona's high defensive line. Leicester City's 2016 Premier League title win became the modern blueprint for counter-attacking perfection executed by underdogs with pace and discipline. Jamie Vardy's blistering speed, N'Golo Kante's ball-winning ability in midfield, and Riyad Mahrez's creativity on the break combined into a system that absorbed pressure from better teams, won possession in dangerous areas, and transitioned vertically before opponents could organize defensively. They sat deep, let teams have the ball in non-threatening areas, then punished mistakes with direct passes that exploited space behind aggressive fullbacks. The 5,000-to-1 outsiders won the league because they executed the counter-attacking philosophy better than teams with 10 times their budget. Counter-attacking is the most effective underdog philosophy in football because it doesn't require elite technical players. It requires discipline, organization, and devastating pace going forward. You defend deep with numbers, stay compact to prevent through balls, and when you win possession, you hit teams with 3 or 4 passes maximum before shooting. The key is transitioning faster than the opposition can recover, catching defenders scrambling back and creating numerical advantages in attack. It's not pretty football. It won't win style points, but when executed properly, counter-attacking wins trophies and makes tactically superior teams look stupid. Gegenpressing. Jurgen Klopp took one simple idea and turned it into football's most exhausting nightmare for opponents. Win the ball back within 6 seconds of losing it every single time. His Borussia Dortmund side in 2011 and 2012 won back-to-back Bundesliga titles by suffocating teams with relentless pressing that started the moment possession was lost. The concept was brutally simple. The opposition is most vulnerable immediately after winning the ball because they're disorganized, so press them instantly, force mistakes, and turn defense into attack before they can even breathe. Klopp called it heavy metal football, and Bayern Munich's dominance got temporarily shattered by kids who ran like their lives depended on it. At Liverpool, Klopp refined the system into pure devastation, winning the Champions League in 2019 and the Premier League in 2020 with a front three that pressed like wolves hunting prey. Sadio Mane, Roberto Firmino, and Mohamed Salah didn't just attack, they were the first line of defense, closing down passing lanes and forcing panicked clearances that the midfield would intercept in dangerous areas. Klopp's famous quote summed it up perfectly: "Gegenpressing is the best playmaker." Why wait for a creative midfielder to unlock the defense when you can win the ball 30 yards from goal with the opposition completely out of position? The philosophy requires fitness levels that border on superhuman. Players sprint constantly, press in waves, and maintain this intensity for 90 minutes, which is why Klopp's teams often deal with injury crises when the fixture list gets congested. Burnout lurks around every corner. Dortmund's system eventually wore players down, and Liverpool's injury nightmare in 2021 showed what happens when the machine breaks. But when it works, gegenpressing is unstoppable, turning defending into attacking so fast that opponents don't know whether to cry or just give up. Wingback revolution. Antonio Conte looked at traditional fullbacks and decided they weren't doing enough work, so he invented a system that turned them into hybrid attackers who spent more time in the opposition half than their own. His 3-5-2 formation deployed 3 centre-backs for defensive cover, freeing wing-backs to bomb forward relentlessly and provide width that inside forwards couldn't. At Juventus, Conte won 3 consecutive Serie A titles between 2012 and 2014 using this blueprint. then took it to Chelsea in 2016 and won the Premier League in his first season by transforming the entire tactical landscape of English football. Teams didn't know how to defend against it because wingbacks created overloads that traditional four-man defenses couldn't handle. The system worked because wingbacks provided width while inside forwards cut inside, creating numerical superiority in both wide areas and central zones simultaneously. Chelsea's Victor Moses and Marcos Alonso became the blueprint. Neither was an elite fullback or winger individually, but Conte transformed them into relentless attacking threats who could sprint up and down the touchline for 90 minutes. When Chelsea attacked, they had 5 or 6 players flooding forward. When they defended, the wing-backs tucked in to create a back five that was nearly impossible to break down. It was tactical flexibility taken to its logical extreme, answering modern football's demand for players who could do everything. The philosophy requires elite stamina because wing-backs cover more ground than any other position on the pitch. They defend like fullbacks, attack like wingers, and transition between phases constantly without rest. Moses and Alonso weren't the most talented players Chelsea ever had, but Conte's system made them indispensable by giving them clear roles and the freedom to exploit space that traditional formations left undefended. The wingback revolution proved that tactical innovation can turn good players into great ones, and that sometimes the answer to football's problems isn't better individuals, it's better positioning. Sacchi's pressing. Arrigo Sacchi arrived at AC Milan in 1987 with 0 playing career and one revolutionary idea that would change football forever: defend by attacking. His pressing system turned defense into a coordinated wolfpack that hunted in synchronized movements, compressed space like a vice, and forced errors through pure organizational brilliance. Between 1989 and 1990, Milan won back-to-back European Cups using a system where the defensive line moved as one unit, pushing up and down the pitch with such precision it looked choreographed. Opponents found themselves trapped in a shrinking cage with nowhere to pass, no time to think, and mistakes becoming inevitable. The genius of Sacchi's system was zonal marking executed with military discipline. Instead of man-marking individual players, Milan defended spaces with all 11 players compressing the pitch into a 25-meter zone between the defensive line and the forwards. When Milan lost possession, the entire team moved up the field together, squeezing opponents into tight areas where technical quality didn't matter because there was no room to use it. Franco Baresi orchestrated the offside trap with such perfection that opposing strikers spent half the match flagged offside and the other half wondering what just happened. The defensive line wasn't just defending, it was controlling the entire tactical landscape of the match. Defend by pressing became a global coaching philosophy that spread like wildfire after Milan's dominance. Managers worldwide realized that the best defense wasn't sitting deep and hoping for the best. It was attacking relentlessly, winning the ball high, and never giving opponents time to organize their attacks. Jurgen Klopp's Gegenpressing is just Sacchi 2.0 with German intensity and modern fitness levels added to the blueprint. Sacchi proved that collective organization beats individual brilliance, that pressing isn't just running around randomly, and that the most beautiful defense is one that opponents never see because they can't keep the ball long enough to attack. Jogo Bonito. Jogo Bonito, the beautiful game, is Brazil's footballing soul distilled into a philosophy that values beauty over results and celebrates individual flair as much as team success. The 1970 World Cup in Mexico showcased this philosophy at its absolute peak, with Pelé, Jairzinho, Gerson and Rivellino producing football so perfect it looked like choreographed art. Carlos Alberto's goal in the final against Italy, a sweeping team move involving all 10 outfield players that ended with the captain thundering the ball into the net, remains the most iconic goal in World Cup history and the purest expression of Jogo Bonito ever captured on film. Entertainment wasn't just valued, it was the entire point, with technique and creativity prioritized even when pragmatic football might have been safer. Brazil built their identity on this philosophy for decades, producing players who could dribble past 3 defenders just because it looked spectacular, who would attempt outrageous flicks and tricks even in World Cup finals. The idea was simple but profound. Football should be enjoyed, not just endured. Winning mattered, but winning beautifully mattered more. Fans around the world fell in love with Brazilian football because it represented everything magical about the sport. Spontaneity, creativity, joy, and the belief that one moment of individual genius could change everything. Then 2014 happened. Germany destroyed Brazil 7-1 in the World Cup semi-final on home soil. exposing the limitations of a philosophy that prioritized beauty over tactical discipline. Modern football's intensity, pressing systems, and organized defending turned Joga Bonito into a relic from a different era. Brazil hasn't won a World Cup since 2002, and every tournament brings the same painful realization. Beautiful football doesn't beat teams who defend with 11 men and counter with ruthless efficiency. The philosophy exists now only in memory, in highlight reels from the 1970s, and in the hearts of fans who still believe football should be more than just winning. The pressing trap. Marcelo Bielsa's football philosophy is organized chaos taken to its most extreme conclusion, relentless man-marking, aggressive pressing from minute 1 to minute 90, and a fitness regime that pushes players to absolute breaking point. His teams at Leeds, Athletic Bilbao, and Marseille all played the same suffocating style. Press the opposition everywhere on the pitch, sprint constantly to close down passing lanes, and never give opponents a second to breathe. Bielsa's Leeds side in the championship pressed so intensely that they won promotion in 2020 by exhausting teams into submission, forcing errors through sheer physical domination rather than tactical complexity. It was beautiful to watch and terrifying to play against. The philosophy earned the nickname Murder Ball because it kills both teams. Bielsa's players run themselves into the ground, but so do their opponents who spend 90 minutes getting hunted like prey. Fitness gets pushed to limits most coaches wouldn't dare attempt, with training sessions designed to replicate match intensity and players covering distances that border on superhuman. The system is entertaining as hell when it works, with high pressing creating turnovers in dangerous areas and leading to rapid-fire goal-scoring opportunities. But injuries pile up inevitably because human bodies aren't designed to sprint at maximum capacity for entire seasons without breaking down. Bielsa's influence on modern coaching is massive, despite never winning the biggest trophies. Pep Guardiola calls him the best coach in the world. Mauricio Pochettino learned his pressing principles directly from Bielsa at Newell's Old Boys, and Diego Simeone's Atletico Madrid intensity carries Bielsa's DNA. These disciples took his madness, refined it with better sports science and rotation policies, and spread it globally across elite football. Bielsa proved that tactical obsession and physical intensity can overcome superior talent, that pressing is an art form when executed with total commitment, and that sometimes the most beautiful football comes from making the opposition so uncomfortable they forget how to play.